A time to eat.
What are you hungry for?
Sit down and get ready to consume an abundance of fantasy football knowledge from Ross Tucker and Joe Dolan.
Feed me now. I'm starving.
On the Fantasy Feast Eatin' Podcast.
Yeah, let's eat, baby. It is the Fantasy Feast Eatin' Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. The Commanders. I guess I played for the Commanders organization. I don't know. Commanders, Cowboys. I can't even say it. I can't even say it with a straight face. I don't know what to do. Do I say I played for the Redskins because that's who I played for? Or did I play for the Commanders? We'll have to discuss that momentarily with not only Joe Dolan from fantasypoints.com, but the great Tom Brolley from fantasypoints.com. I'm telling you, fantasypoints.com has an army of dudes like Dolan, like Brolley, like Graham, like Scott, like Guru, like Kaplan, like Cosell. I mean, I could go on and on. The point is, if you haven't already, if you listen to this podcast, you haven't gone to fantasypoints.com and use the code 21Feast, what are we even doing? You got to follow these guys on social media as well. Joe is still, after all these years, the fantasy gangsta at FG_Dolan. Tom is just regular old at Tom Brolley, although he's rocking the beard now, which I appreciate.
Keep it simple, Ross. I had the FG at one point as well. I switched it over to Tom Brolley. Keep it nice and easy. You know, you just say the name. That's the Twitter handle. It makes it easy when I do these guest spots.
I think Joe likes the fact that I call him the fantasy gangster. I think he's thought about changing his handle and thought, you know what? I like that I'm the fantasy gangster.
Ross, like, here's the thing. First and foremost, I have the blue check mark, so that's an important part of the. I get to have my opinion highlighted more, but no, the fantasy gangster thing is very good. And also, Joe Dolan was an Irish lounge singer, and I think he passed recently. And so occasionally I'll get older Irish women tweeting at me about their favorite Joe Dolan song, and I'm like, well, sorry, I mean, not me, but I do appreciate.
But you're a good singer, Joe. You could fill the shoes of the old Joe Dolan.
Yeah.
You could be an Irish singer.
Let me look up some of his hits. Joe Dolan, Joseph Francis Robert Dolan. That's actually my middle name, by the way. So my name is Joseph Francis Dolan. His name is Joseph Francis Robert Dolan. Chiefly known in Ireland for his association with show bands and for his innovative style and high-pitched singing voice.
You're not high-pitched, though.
Oh, I can be if you want me to.
You have innovative style, though.
Yeah, very innovative. Make me an island, Teresa. You're such a good-looking woman. Oh boy, there's
Teresa. You're such a good. No, I've never heard of it.
Those are two different songs, actually. Teresa, you're such a good woman. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, we know we got the particulars out of the way, and Tom, I'm going to let you intro Joe why Tom is here, because he's here for a very specific reason.
Right. Well, Tom's the director of betting at fantasypoints.com, and there is one thing that a lot of people like to do with the Super Bowl: bet. So, and as we know, you have the betting podcast. Tom, is always doing this stuff as well. But we also come up with at fantasypoints.com. Yet another throw to the website here, a Super Bowl prop pool, Ross, where it's so much fun to hand out at your Super Bowl party. We're gonna put the PDF out there, but we have like 30 plus questions this year of prop bets for the Super Bowl, and they'll be in-game props. Who's the leading receiver? Who's the leading rusher? Who's going to score the first touchdown? In addition to a lot of fun stuff like the national anthem, the color of the Gatorade, who's the first performer at halftime in this loaded halftime show. And we assign, and Tom does a great job taking the implied odds and assigning a point value to that. So it's basically becomes a multiple choice test where, for instance, you can say who's going to score the first touchdown. Is it going to be a Ram receiver, a Ram running back, a Bengal receiver, a Bengal running back, or a defense special teams? Now, obviously, a defense special teams is less likely to happen than just a regular old skill position player scoring the first touchdown. So if you answer that and get it correctly, you get more points for it. It's just like if you put $5 on a longer odds bet, you're going to make more money than if you put it on an even odds bet. So so we do a nice little fun pool, and Tom's been going through. He's been looking at all the props, but he's also made some early wagers, which I think will help color some of our analysis for the fantasy aspect next week.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. And next week, Joe and I will dive into the game real hard from a fantasy perspective, of course, and likely have another great guest on, maybe another fantasypoints.com superstar. I should mention I'm at Ross Tucker NFL on social media. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. I'm impressed across the board. More and more people starting to watch these shows, which is very cool. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Tom, let's start though, because prop bets and fantasy football are very heavily intertwined. I'm looking at DraftKings right now, DraftKings Sportsbook, and they've got the rushing yards up. They've got the receiving yards up, receptions, all these things for so many different players. So talk to me about this, Tom. What is your process? Where do you start? When did these props come out, and where did you start? Do you do projections and then just scour them real quick to see which ones don't mess with your projections, or what?
Yeah, so this is the earliest I've ever seen, prop lines come out for the Super Bowl. I mean, I was looking around. DraftKings started putting stuff up basically at 11 a.m., 10, 11 a.m. I'm on there, checking it out. I'm looking for all the different lines. So, we know they put the actual spread and the total out, as soon as that San Francisco and the Rams game finished up Sunday night. But there's so much competition in the market anymore that these books are looking to get their lines out as early as possible. So I was on there Monday checking them out. So we do projections on the website. I usually use those as a baseline. John Hansen, does, most of the major lifting on that. I have my own opinions, based on, I work on our waiver wire quite a bit. So I know usage and, how guys are getting played, injuries, all I have to keep tabs on all that stuff. So I go in, with basic lines in my head. So, and I'm checking them out. And if there is a significant difference between, where I think a line should be and where the actual prop line is, that's when I'll, fire a bet and I'll put it up. I have my best bets article up on the site that I put that up first thing Monday morning at 10 a.m. usually, all throughout the season. And I'm filling that thing in all week here. So, I did it with the Super Bowl here. So we have a couple bets up on the site already. I continue to look at all the different lines that are available. Not only at DraftKings, I look all over and look for the best lines out there, and I'll put them up and I'll recommend them as prep plays. But the Super Bowl, I know, this is the time. There's not as much DFS going on. Fantasy lineups are kind of done, so people are looking to put some bets and have some friendly wagers on the game here.
So okay, so that's interesting. So DraftKings had it up by 10, 11 a.m. on Monday morning.
Yes, I was on there. I'm just checking everything out, and I could see them start coming out. So this is the earliest I can remember. I don't know when they started trickling out last year, but there's just more and more competition out there, and everything is so automated as well. And that with this game, there's a couple injuries. CJ Uzoma injured his knee. Tyler Higbee injured his knee. They both could play, but they're not going to significantly alter what other guys' lines are. They're not going to. If it was a Cooper Kupp, they would have a tough time putting up lines for the rest of the offense because he controls so much of what goes on. So they kind of got lucky in that way as well. That there's not a whole lot of major injuries, which we want to see. We want to see the best players playing in the biggest games. So that's a good thing.
So another question I have on that. So you've got these projections. Essentially, how much do they have to be off? I think this is an important lesson for our listeners or viewers. How much of a spread does there have to be between your projection and what the line set at for you to fire? Can you give me an example, or is there a percentage or a number of yards that's like, is it 10 yards? Is it 5? Like, I don't know what the margins are that we're looking at or talking here.
Yeah, I mean, the larger the number gets, I use basically percentages in my head. Like a passing yard difference, we got the guys sitting at 278 yards. A 5 or 10 yard difference on a passing total isn't going to, it's not a significant number. But that could be a huge difference on, say, like Tyler Boyd's number. It was set at 43.5 when I was looking on Monday. I thought that should have been projected more in the 34 to 35 yard range. So that is a, significant difference. It's only 7-8 yard difference, when you're looking at it, but that's a big difference when we're talking about just 43 yards compared to 278 yards when we're looking at like a Matthew Stafford prop. So it's all relative, but I generally use, percentages. I'm looking for numbers that are, say 15 to 20% off of, what's listed.
Got it. I love it. Okay. That makes perfect sense to me. So, because that was kind of where I was curious about. That's interesting about Tyler Boyd, by the way. So, did you go under on Tyler Boyd?
I did. I thought the number opened up, a little too large. It has been bet down. It was 43.5 on Monday. I'm checking to see where it's at.
39.5 right now.
Yeah, it was a bit high. I guess maybe they were thinking maybe CJ Uzomah wouldn't play, but it's kind of looking like he might play. But he hasn't been really close to in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and he's gone under that number. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's like 11 or 12 of his games he's gone under 40 receiving yards. So he's been more of a bit player here, especially down the stretch. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are eating up most of the receiving production in that offense. So he's been kind of relegated to a handful of short underneath targets and very few big plays. The only one I can really think of in recent weeks was in that Baltimore game when he did a little slot out and up and down the seam, and that's about it for all his big plays here in recent weeks.
Before I forget, Tom, I have a theory that I wanted to run by you. Playoff games. I love the over rushing yards for quarterbacks. I think they're more willing to run and try to get first downs and maybe not even slide or sacrifice their bodies because of the, win or you're done scenario. So I feel like that's been pretty good to me, over Josh Allen against the Chiefs, over Patrick Mahomes. I like the over for Joe Burrow last week, and he got it on like one run. And, that's my theory. So looking at it, Matthew Stafford, 5.5 yards, that's one run. He just needs to run one time.
He beat that last week too, I think, too.
What's that?
I think Stafford beat that last week too.
Yeah,
he has.
Burrow, 11.5. That's probably 2 runs for him, but he's going to be under pressure. He's going to have to do something, so he might run. I don't know. That's my little theory that's been good for me.
I completely agree, and Patrick Mahomes has kind of been the poster child for that the last couple of years because he plays a little bit more conservative during regular season, and then we see him really taking off and running in these games. He actually led the divisional round in rushing. I don't know what his odds were, but we had all the running backs in the divisional round. They do these divisional round specials, and I'm sure he was like plus 40 to 1 or 50 to 1 to do it, and he actually led all of the divisional round in rushing. But I jumped on the Matthew Stafford. It was at 4.5 when it first came out on Monday. It's been bumped up a yard, but I went back and looked at the numbers, and he scrambled only 9 times during the regular season. That's over 17 games. He had 90 rushing yards on those plays. in the playoffs, he's already in 3 games, he's already scrambled 5 times for 37 yards. So, he's scrambling basically 1.5 times per game here in the regular season. In the postseason, we've seen him actually. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns. He hasn't scored a regular season touchdown in 4 or 5 years. I was looking at the numbers, but he scored 2 rushing touchdowns here in the postseason. So. It's not a big weapon of his. It's not, you never think of Matthew Stafford as this guy that's making a lot of plays outside of structure. But he does still have that weapon. He's still a pretty good athlete. And when things break down here in the postseason, he's been running a little bit more. So I did like that. I guess the only concern would be, from a couple of years ago, I had a Patrick Mahomes, the bad beat of all bad beats. He was, I forget what the rushing yardage total was in the Kansas City 49ers Super Bowl right before the COVID outbreak. He was up at like 41 rushing yards or whatever the number was, and he had to get up over 34.5 yards. And they needed to waste off the final 2 minutes of the clock, and he took like a 12-yard. He went backwards and took a knee for like a 12-yard loss. It went under the prop, and that was one of the biggest knees to the balls I've had with player props in the Super Bowl for sure.
And you have to keep in mind that these are 2 quarterbacks who aren't running quarterbacks. So, now that's not to say, Burrow and Stafford obviously can use their athleticism, but these guys are much more likely, Ross, to hit an under by kneeling down than somebody like a Josh Allen is. So just keep that, because Stafford, look at last week. Stafford had 8 rushing yards with a long of 14. Because he took, and his kneel downs were 2 yards deep. So just keep that in mind if you're betting one of these overs. But again,
you want a little extra cushion.
you can also look at the fact that what if the game doesn't end on a kneel down, which by the way is one of our props, Tom, in the contest. What is the last play of the game? Any play from scrimmage, a field goal attempt, or a kickoff, or a kneel down, which is the most likely. So there's a lot to take into account there. But yeah, that Mahomes one was an all-time bad beat. I mean, I remember people on Twitter just exploding when that happened.
Wow, that's interesting. 2 things I want to point out quick. Number 1, I think most of you guys know this, but Even Money podcast, Steve Fezzik will have all of his props next week, including a lot of specialty props, Gatorade color, stuff like that. Most of the stuff he bets, he does the same bets every year and they win. It's like, I don't know, will it go to overtime? Although maybe this is a year not to do that because there have been so many overtime games. But make sure you listen to the Even Money podcast or check it out this week, but especially next week. The other thing is, I am trying to stay healthy to finish the season strong, which is why I'm taking these athletic greens now. It's this little scooper. You put it in this powder, put it in a water bottle, you shake it up, drink it, you can chug it, whatever. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, I don't know. Adaptogens I'm going to go with. Here's what matters, okay? It's less than $3 a day. It's less than getting coffee. They have over 7,000 5-star reviews. Dudes like Tim Ferriss, who's a legend, take this stuff and are trusted. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/feast. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/feast to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Let's get to some of the other ones that you like, Tom. What about Cooper Kupp? You mentioned him earlier. Is there something about Kupp that you're in on?
Yeah, I mean, he's been excellent all season. If you're looking at his receiving yards prop, whenever the number gets up over 100 yards, I have a tough time betting it, but he has been absolute money on these. he's like been 14 out of 20 in terms of his like receiving yards prop. Just absolutely excellent with it. I actually like, depending on where you're looking, his MVP odds. I think we're going to find out that probably Aaron Rodgers is going to win the MVP award next week. I think they'll announce I think that's part of the awards show next Thursday. So, we're going to find out that probably Rodgers has won that. But I feel like there's been some momentum building for Cooper Kupp here in the postseason. He's been excellent again. Every week he's coming up with big play. He was the difference maker last week against the 49ers late in that game. He's up to 170 catches this season, up over 2,300 yards and 20 touchdowns.
That is unbelievable.
Absolutely unbelievable. And I think there's, the award has become, the MVP of the regular season award has become such a quarterback award. But, if there was 1 year, Cooper Kupp should have probably gotten more consideration for the award. He's not going to win it, but I think there might be, some, if he has a big game in the Super Bowl, I think there's going to be some sentiment that, maybe this guy deserves some sort of recognition. I think, I don't know how it's working this year, but last year, it's 16 writers that vote on the award, and, it's fans that also vote on the award. So if Kupp has another big game, if he would somehow get to 161 yards, like he's done, several times already this season, and he breaks Larry Fitzgerald's receiving yards in a postseason record, I think there's going to be a lot of momentum for Kupp. So, depending on where you look, it's plus 600, plus 700. I really like that number.
So his number for receiving is 102.5. Where are you there?
Yeah, he's been so good going over this number. It's literally, I think he's gone over his total 14 out of 20 times this year. So I'm not stepping in front of him. I don't know. I probably won't necessarily bet it, but I could only look towards the over here. He's such a big part of the offense. If Tyler Higbee isn't, in a factor here, maybe that results in another target or two. And, Odell Beckham is even, he's even helping him out here. He's become more of a factor here in the last, 3 or 4 games. He's been, drawing attention away. They can't, just send 2 guys at him and let Odell Beckham do whatever he wants. So I think that's also worked to his advantage here. So I can only look at overs with Cooper Kupp props right now.
All right. So, Joe, did he just have the best receiving season ever?
Yes. I think you can talk about Randy Moss's 2007 with all the touchdowns up there, but Cooper Kupp certainly did. And I kind of am with Tom in like, all right, let's just say Cooper Kupp goes over the 102.5. Okay. Well, you're minus 110 to hit that over. Well, part of him going over that would be including if he has 135 yards and 2 touchdowns and 11 catches. And what if Matthew Stafford, over half of his passing yards go to Cooper Kupp? Who's going to win the MVP? Now, Stafford is by far the betting favorite. So he's the betting favorite for obvious reasons, okay? The Rams are 4.5-point favorites, which, by the way, I think that's a little long, and I think Tom agrees with that. I'm looking at a 4.5 right now. But because they're the favorites and he's the quarterback of the Rams, he's the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl MVP. But there is a chance that Cooper Kupp accounts for over half of Matthew Stafford's passing production. Maybe he scores multiple touchdowns. And then, like Tom said, building on the narrative that, man, he didn't win the MVP, but he should have gotten more consideration. I wonder if the sports writers in the box at the game are going to be like, this is Cooper Kupp. This was his year. This was his award. I'm going to put it on his shoulders, and I'm going to vote him Super Bowl MVP. I do kind of like that one, Tom. And I do want to.
Why I don't? You know why? Where I disagree.
Go ahead,
please.
He's going to win Offensive Player of the Year.
I mean, I think that's
he's going to win the Offensive Player of the Year award.
So they're going to say, "Oh, that's his award." Yeah.
They'll say, Rodgers got MVP, Kupp got Offensive Player of the Year, Stafford gets MVP of the game.
Yeah. The only thing I will say though is, Ross, if let's say Stafford throws for under 300 in this game, and Kupp goes for 135 and 2 touchdowns. I just kind of feel like Kupp will be the story that people are latching onto, right? Of the game. He was uncoverable all year. He was uncoverable in the Super Bowl. I'm just saying, like, I feel like there's too big a gulf between Stafford's MVP odds and Kupp's MVP odds.
I agree with that. I think, when we look back at seasons, I don't think we necessarily remember the Offensive Player of the Year award. I think the first two awards that come to mind are who won the MVP that season and who won the Super Bowl MVP that season. So, this has been the year of Cooper Kupp. I mean, this has been the best offensive season for a receiver, if you include the postseason. I mean, Calvin Johnson may have had more receiving yards in the regular season. Michael Thomas may have had more receptions, but when you put together his body of work as a whole, I just think that there might be some, I think that, it's a great narrative. Not that Matthew Stafford doesn't have a great narrative as well. And that's what we're always looking for with these MVP awards. I mean, he goes from Detroit and, barely playing in the postseason games to winning a Super Bowl. There's no doubt if Matthew Stafford goes out, plays a relatively clean game, throws for 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, he's the betting favorite for a reason. But if Cooper Kupp, does a lot of the heavy lifting, like he's done quite a few times this season, and if Stafford has a turnover or two, I think Kupp is very much in the mix to win the award.
Let me bring up potentially, Ross, another narrative. What if there's a narrative street? What if Jamar Chase goes nuts in this game? No rookie's ever won the Super Bowl MVP. Now, I think I'm leaning with Tom. Like, I think everybody's coronating Joe Burrow right now, right? But what if Chase has one of those games, and he's had like 3 of them this year? And,
I like Chase's odds, Joe. I mean, he's sitting around. When I was looking, he was plus 1,600. If you look around, there's some other numbers that are a little bit higher. But Chase, this has been a very special season. He's been kind of anointed even before the draft that he might be an all-time great. He just had one of the best rookie seasons ever here. This would be kind of the way to go out in style. But it is a Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, what he's done in the postseason, it's going to take a lot to beat. But we've seen him have a couple 200. He's had 2 200-yard games, up over 100 yards 7 different times this season in 20 games. It's just remarkable what he's done as a rookie. So if he goes out and has a monster game as well, and he's on an absolute tear going into the postseason, going into the Super Bowl. Starting with the last game or 2 in the regular season, he had that monster game against the Chiefs where, he won a bunch of people fantasy titles with his performance, 50-some fantasy points in that game. It's continued right through the playoffs. I mean, even last week, he was getting double teamed quite a bit, and he still finds a way to score a touchdown, get 6 catches. So I love Chase's odds as well.
Anything else? Stafford, Mixon, Aaron Donald. Did you something on Aaron Donald, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, what are we thinking whenever we kind of break down this game? What is the first thing that everybody thinks about with this matchup? It's the offensive line mismatch with the Bengals versus the defense. The strength of the defensive line for the Rams. So if that starts to play a factor in the game, and say, this is a total that's, started at 50 and a half. It's been getting steadily bet down here. There were some 48s last week. It's yesterday. It's settled back in at 48 and a half here as of Wednesday, but it's been getting steady money towards the under here. So if this turns into a little bit of a defensive game, and we just saw Jeffrey Simmons just eat the Bengals interior offensive line alive. He racked up 3 sacks in that game. The Titans sacked Joe Burrow 9 times in that game. And, for the season, he's been sacked 63 times in 19 games. That is pretty brutal. So if this turns into, a defensive type of game, and we're looking for narratives again, everybody knows Aaron Donald. He's the, preeminent, defensive player in the league. If he could get, maybe 2 sacks, and maybe if he forces a fumble or he just starts creating havoc there, I could see a path to him winning. But yeah, it's going to take probably a low-scoring game for that to happen.
Check him out on social media at Tom Brolley. Love prop conversation. We got to have you on more often, Tom. These are awesome. Love these debates and discussions. He's the fantasy gangster. You know it, at FG_Dolan. Make sure you get all the content from both these guys. FantasyPoints.com. Use the code 21Feast. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. Other than that, I'm stuffed. We're done.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Feast podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and the College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.